Okay. Hello, my name is Bibi, and I'm a certified yoga teacher. And today I'm speaking on behalf of the Iyengar Yoga Association of Vancouver. I hope you will feel inspired to start your yoga practice by meeting and learning from our teachers. And we are running this series of interviews and trying to upload every month a new interview with our practitioners and dedicated teachers. And today, I have owners of the yoga space, Morgan and Cheryl. They have been working toward their goal to take Iyengar yoga to a wider audience, to be involved in the community, and to host events where our students and teachers could come together and foster community spirit. Their friendship started in the first year of teacher training and has taken them to India, the US, and various parts of Canada to study and deepen their understanding of Iyengar yoga. Cheryl and Morgan are both level 2 certified Iyengar yoga teachers and have been teaching yoga for over a decade. Hello, ladies, and thank you for being on this call.
Hi, Bibi.
Hi, Bibi. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I really wanted to have this, like just a chat, a conversation about starting from you, where you started your yoga journey and why you decided maybe to become Iyengar yoga teachers. So who would like to start?
I can start, that's fine. So my yoga journey started quite a while ago. And I think I started practicing initially because after I was just curious about it. And so I tried. And after doing a class, my whole body felt really good. And it felt like nothing I've ever done before. I've been quite active as a person, and just yoga was something unique. And since that sense of uniqueness, I can feel that it applies to all the activities I take part in now. So everything outdoors, everything indoors, I see yoga in it. And the second reason that I found yoga absolutely fascinating is that in Shavasana, the first few times I took yoga, the yoga classes, I had a sense, a feeling, an experience that I hadn't had anywhere before except two places when I was traveling. And one of them was in Tibet and one of them was in Japan. And both of them were actually when I was visiting monasteries and heard Buddhist monks chanting. And it brought me to this place of very still, quiet, inward. And I didn't understand what it was at that point, but when I felt it, when I started practicing yoga in Shavasana, I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's why I practice.
So amazing, right? So you don't need to really have to travel to some rare areas in Tibet and to climb the mountains to find this inward peace. It's just enough to open the mat and start practicing yoga. So yeah, I do remember from my teachers, when we were when I was young, I would say just look at yoga as another like a stretching exercise, and I will sometimes skip shavasana. Oh, okay, I don't have time to lay down now. I did my asanas and I will skip it. But teachers would say, no, this is actually the most important part. You are working, you're doing all these 2 hours of practice towards Shavasana. This is the most important part. You cannot skip Shavasana and say, okay, I will do it later on before my sleep time.
Yeah, it definitely is a special time of your practice, of the class. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, Cheryl, for sharing. And what brought you to yoga teaching eventually? That sense of unique that you had, like practice that you felt in yoga practice?
Yeah, it was essentially that. I was so moved by both the physical aspect as well as the, let's just call it meditative aspect, the state of mind that the practice brings, that I thought that I wanted to share it with anyone who would listen. And that's why I wanted to start teaching. I think it was pretty quick, maybe within months after starting practicing yoga, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with everyone. And I tried bringing all my friends to classes. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I want to teach. And that was the beginning of the journey.
Right after a month of practice, right?
Pardon me?
Right after a month of practice.
Pretty much.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, well, no, I didn't start my teacher training right after a month of practice. I just knew I needed to teach and I needed to share this practice.
Oh, yeah.
After a month of practice.
Yes, I remember that actually, that we have to, I also had these thoughts, but then I realized that in order to apply for our teacher training course, you need to go through how many years, like a few years, and then you need to give referrals. So it's not like, you know, I just decided and jump on and have a few hours of teacher training and I'm done. And I just remember that. Thanks for sharing, Cheryl. And Morgan, would you like to share your story?
Sure. I mean, I guess I was always intrigued by yoga when I was in sort of my early 20s, but it wasn't really until I started law school in '89 that I went to a local community center and I thought, you know, I could take some yoga class. And I just happened to, luckily, the class I chose, I stumbled upon Iyengar yoga with Claudia McDonald, actually, in East Vancouver. And I just found, you know, she was very inspiring teacher. She's funny and very engaging. And I'd go week to weekly class and I would really love it. But I was, you know, just like a class goer. I wasn't a real practitioner, but it did sort of develop that first spark in me. I experienced the system and the practice. And I just felt very, it really spoke to me. And another aspect that really spoke to me was that this sense of community in the classroom. You know, it was because, as you know, Iyengar yoga classes are structured, you know, you register for a chunk of time and you attend usually 1 or 2 classes weekly. You know, I went from not knowing anyone in the class to sort of seeing the same faces week after week, and then getting, you know, chatting with people before and after class. So it was really a lovely way to sort of develop community in an area where I was new to, but also to develop community in something that was new to me, like a practice that was new to me. And sort of, you know, meeting people who had been doing it for years and decades, and, you know, and some people who were new like me. Yeah, so, you know, that's sort of how it started. It was just really happenstance that I, you know, just happened to go to an Iyengar yoga class, and so I continued to go to classes pretty consistently, and then moved to North Vancouver and started working with Sarah Godfrey, who was also an inspiring, lovely teacher. And it was with her that I decided that I would like to apply to come into the teacher training program.
Together along your law school, which is quite demanding, I could imagine.
Well, no, by then I had been practicing law. By then, I guess that's sort of a very condensed version of 20 years, because I started practicing. I started practicing yoga in '89, but I didn't actually start exploring teacher training until a good 15 years later. And so, so I had a long, you know, weekly class practice. But with, you know, when I moved to North Vancouver, my kids were little, I started practicing more at home. And, you know, sometimes that practice was practicing while helping with homework. But, you know, it was what it was. And I was able to maintain a practice. And then it was sort of moving on to teacher training. And that was at that point when I entered the teacher training program, I moved to the yoga space and trained with Louis Ethling, who of course is also a lovely, inspiring teacher as well.
It's so important, right? Like, especially in yoga, but I also find, like, even starting from the elementary school, like I was just recently talking to my niece, and she says, well, I like biology because we have a good teacher, and the teacher is very dedicated and passionate. I have difficulty with chemistry because teacher is not really aligned, you know, and not really. So it's so much, even if we know that, I also was amazed, like whenever I travel in the world, when when you walk in Iyengar yoga studio, it will be kind of similar practice and, you know, certain expectations in terms of the way how the class is run and the teaching, etc., even different languages, but still the personality, right? So that you build this vast and number of students, dedicated students, who doesn't matter what I heard about, like while our teacher Louis was moving around in Seattle, the students would follow her, like East Van, down, like the students just follow their teacher, right? Because because of the personality of teacher that they bring into the practice, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we're finding that even in our online classes, that there's so many students who are just joining us in this big adventure of online classes, and they're prepared to try something new because they are connected to the practice, they're connected to the community. I mean, people just love coming to our, love seeing at the beginning of class all the little tiles of their colleagues, their co-practitioners. It's really a lovely experience.
One thing that happened yesterday in one of my classes that I was teaching was a mother and daughter used to come to the studio all the time, and now that we're online, they come both to the online classes, and then so the mom came in, and then the daughter came in, and they were right beside each other, just like they used to put their mats beside each other. So it's like, hey, you guys, it's sweet.
That's very cool.
So actually, I think that will be very interesting for everyone in our community to listen to, or anyone in the online, because it will be public on YouTube. So could you tell us about more about what you're doing with Yoga Space, and how was it for you to go into online, and how the yoga changed the practice and teaching and everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a big challenge for everyone. I mean, the pandemic has presented so many challenges for all of us, and switching to online classes was something new. It felt like an adventure. And yeah, I mean, we started off with a week of sort of free classes just to see who was anyone interested, because it was so early. It was easily, April, Cheryl, that we were, the pandemic started. We closed the studio in March, and then sometime in April, we started up online classes, and we found that people came. And so we thought, well, let's just go with it and see what happens. And it seemed to work for what was available at the time, and what is now currently available.
I found that my own experience with yoga teacher online, that it's on one hand, it is very different, from being with people, doesn't matter it's yoga teaching or any teaching, with being with human beings in the same room, rather than trying to connect online. But at the same time, it opens up boundaries, because I had friends who were, and family members, I just realized, oh, why I cannot teach my mom when she's on the opposite side of the planet, and as long as we find time, I can just jump on a Zoom, because like before, my mind just didn't go there, and now I said, oh, mom, do you want a yoga session with your daughter? Right, so it's
true.
Boundaries. Yeah. So though, if we will going back to all so many years of your teaching, is there any, like, I always think about why, right? We most of the time spend time on what and how, but why first people come to yoga, and what is their motivation, and why do they stick around for many years? What was your observation from your students? What would you say?
I think it's a combination of many things, and many people come for different reasons. I would say that some people come because they like what you were saying previously, they like to stretch. And that's initially what my brother actually started, because as you were just saying, online. So my brother lives in Toronto, and he started coming to my classes. I never expected that. And he still comes. He's so dedicated. But he'll text me after class and he goes, yeah, those were some really great stretches, Cheryl. And I'll be like, okay. Everybody comes to it in a different way, and it takes, I think, some people feel that they need the stretch, but then they realize after a little while that the stretch is more than just a stretch. And everybody comes to that frame of mind at a different period of time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think if nothing else, given the way we teach in Iyengar yoga, your mind is so focused on, whether you're stamping that outer foot into the floor or whether you're clipping your shoulder blades into your chest, whatever you're doing, that the mind is engaged. So sure, you're doing a stretch, but we're trying to get you to think about how you're moving those shoulder blades. And so the mind becomes absorbed in, well, I mean, the goal is that the mind becomes absorbed in that, and that it's almost like we're sneaking in that meditative benefit on some level, that it just becomes part of what you do. And then suddenly you realize, oh, I wasn't worried about my current situation, or I wasn't going through my laundry list of things that I have to do. As I actually really was fully present for a class. And that's what you want.
but never tell them.
No. No, I mean, often, we often talk about that with the students, but sometimes it takes a while to develop a relationship, because you want people to feel comfortable.
Yes, definitely. There is some, credit of trust is given to the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and then it builds with the time. I also realized, like, before, I was thinking, like, why are younger teachers so talkative? Like they keep talking for the whole 2 hours, and I'm being introvert. And when I was a student, when I traveled, I started my teacher training in London, and when I would so be tired of all this, mental work doing masters, I would go and, like, can I just, like, lay down this in shavasana, like Cheryl said. But then my teacher's like, he gives instructions, and if just for a second your mind wanders, then you missed the instruction. He will look at you and, like, oh my gosh, am I doing something wrong? So it really brings awareness back to the mat, right, to the present moment. And it's a great training for our muscle of attention, which, as we know, shrank to golden fish. So we hear always that our span of attention lasts only 7 seconds now, which is quite pity.
Yeah, it's a worry.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would like to go with maybe one of the last questions. So what's if there will be just one piece of advice that you could give to our audience, what would you say?
Do you want to go first, Cheryl?
Thanks. I think I would just say, try it. It's an hour and a half. Try. If you haven't ever tried Iyengar yoga, just try it. And if you have tried Iyengar yoga and you're there and you don't have time, then practice 5 minutes at home. And then eventually you'll want that 5 minutes to grow, and eventually you'll come back to classes, and then you'll have classes and a home practice. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes in Trikonasana is amazing. It can be amazing.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I mean, yeah, and I would actually reiterate that as well. I think, especially right now, like we are starting to come together a bit more. Times are changing, hopefully, and it's better. But it's important to remain part of a community, just because we are so separated. So coming to a class, coming to a time when you can share an experience with others, even though they're far away, we're all in our homes and we can see each other in our homes, and it's lovely. It's just a lovely feeling to see people in their homes with their dogs walking by, or their partner walking in and taking some milk out of the fridge, or whatever it is. It's a lovely experience. And so I would agree with both Cheryl's points. I would say join the community, come to a class, try it a few times, try a few teachers. I'd also say that to practice something every day. I remember when I was first starting taking yoga classes, and I started to get really enthusiastic, I couldn't remember anything. So I'd try and go home and even just draw a few pictures of the poses that I could remember we had done. And that's sort of how I began, as I would just try, one triangle pose or one downward facing dog. And then, over time that does develop, and your repertoire develops, and you can remember more from what you do in class. And that's something. But I mean, it's better to do 5 minutes of something than, 30 minutes once a month. So
I think this sort of links back to your question about why people come, and also the question that, or the point that we're just talking about is often people tend to come with friends as well. So it's a great thing to do with a friend. Just come and do your practice and then go, and, you know, it's a great way to spend time together for either friends or family or partners. And I think there's a lot of that happens too in classes, is that two people decide they want to do something together, and you know, you can go hiking together for sure, and you can do lots of outdoor activities, but there's this really special thing that happens when you practice together, and it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't even have to be people you know, even just the person beside you or on the screen beside you at this point, that you're practicing together. It's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. I especially, I think, resonate with what you're saying about community and togetherness. By myself being a nomad, when I first came to Vancouver, I literally didn't know anyone. And the second day, when I with the reference from my London yoga teachers, I met Louis, and I met in yoga space. And I think from that day, I feel that that studio was like a holy place for me, or it's like home. Like I would just walk, and that's the same what you're saying, like, again, not being attached to it, like what we went through the COVID time, like not being even attached to a special place, but just whenever you can find. Nowadays, I even just, you know, I go outside for a jogging, and I can find a piece of grass, and I can just do Adho Mukha Svanasana on the bench. I don't even need a mat with me. And that will be, you know, just reconnecting with myself, and my body just needs me to do Adho Mukha Svanasana now, right? The downward facing dog. So it really does, like, you know, disattachment to a certain place, or this community is like something that you carry in your heart, like connection with the people that you build, and with your work that you as well, like starting from self-love and time for yourself, right? So that time on yoga mat for me is that kind of time of self-care, self-love, revisiting what is going on in life and in the world, and what's going on with me. That's kind of that's like my prayer, I would say, like, but I've been completely non-religious person.
Yeah, I think, and you know, going back again, this whole conversation sort of interweaves with each other, all the topics. And when Morgan and I were sort of thinking about, well, what do we want to do with the studio, and all the things that you said when you were doing our introduction, we've really tried to do them. And when we had to stop doing them in person, we were trying to see, for example, the International Day of Yoga Practice, we couldn't do last year because of COVID. And this year we're taking it online. And this year we've also tried to get students to come together online for things just beyond just practicing, just come together to discuss different things. Like, we've had a couple of speakers. We've had Patricia Fernandez, who did a talk on chest health recently, and that was quite well attended, and it sparked conversation. People were talking to each other and had questions, and we were all able to have a conversation online about chest health and about yoga. So that was really great. And we also had Lynn Freehan, who did a talk on hands, and that was incredibly well attended too. And same thing, it was very interactive, and the community got together. We all saw each other, and we've had feedback from the community that, you know, they're quite happy to be attending these kinds of things and seeing each other again during this time.
Yeah, it's really lovely when you're teaching a class at the beginning of class, and someone comes on and goes, "Oh, hi, so-and-so, I haven't seen you in ages," or what, it just makes it feels like, okay, well, we can still do this. We can do this together, and we can be together, even if it's not ideal. It is what we've got right now, and it's the best alternative for right now.
Yeah, it amazes me how human psychology is flexible, and we can adjust to things, and we can find our ways and still find the ways to connect and stay connected, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I just realized that we are almost beyond the time, and we're trying to keep these interviews short and just to create maybe open up some conversations and questions. So as I said, in the description, you will find links to connect with Cheryl and Morgan and check out their website of our lovely yoga space studio, and check out the schedule there. And I would encourage you to subscribe to our channel, and we will start conversation from there. Thank you for listening, and thank you very much, Morgan. Thank you very much, Cheryl, for your time with me today online.
Thank you, Bibi. It's great that you're doing this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bibi.
Okay, see you around. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.